Well, an interesting announcement tonight coming from comedian Matt Rife. He's just purchased Ed and Lorraine Warren's famous House and Occult Museum in Monroe.
Comedian Matt Rife and influencer Elton Castee announced they had acquired the legendary Warren Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut. Do you know what that means? The pair has become the official guardians of one of the most notorious paranormal collections in America, including the infamous Annabelle doll believed to harbor a demonic presence. This Connecticut property previously belonged to Ed and Lorraine Warren, the renowned paranormal investigators who conducted over 3,000 investigations that inspired popular horror films like The Conjuring and the Amityville Horror. The purchase includes at least 5 years of guardianship over the entire Warren occult. The world has been extremely curious about why they decided. The shocking reveal in Matt Rife and Elton's haunted house. On August 2, 2025, the world of entertainment collided with the world of the supernatural in a way no one really expected, when comedian Matt Rife made an announcement that people are still talking about.
Super random but incredible announcement. I have just bought the Ed and Lorraine Warren's Home and Occult Museum with my very good friend Elton Castee.
In a move that shocked both his fans and the wider paranormal community, he revealed that he had officially taken ownership of one of the most infamous haunted locations in America, the former home of demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, what makes this so fascinating is not just that a rising stand-up comic decided to make such an unusual investment, but also the fact that he was stepping into a legacy that has terrified and intrigued people for decades. And really, who would have thought that a young comedian, known for his witty punchlines and sold-out shows, would suddenly be the guardian of haunted relics, tied to some of the most chilling cases in paranormal history? It was the kind of news that made people do a double-take and ask themselves, wait, is this real or is this just one of his bits? But no, this time, it was all too real. The revelation came, as so many big celebrity announcements do these days, through social media. Matt Rife didn't just casually mention it in passing, he dropped the bombshell directly to his millions of followers. In an Instagram post, he proudly wrote that he had officially purchased Ed and Lorraine Warren's house and their famed occult museum, and along with it came the responsibility of being the legal guardian of every item inside, including, most chillingly, the Annabelle doll. What happens when you buy your dream house, only to realize it's hiding nightmares? Matt Rife and Elton thought they were moving into luxury, but what they found inside left even them terrified. Curious yet? Stay tuned till the very end, because the scariest part isn't what you think. To make things even more surreal, Matt Rife shared pictures, one of which showed him and his friend, YouTuber and ghost hunter Elton Castee, posing right next to the doll that has inspired countless nightmares. And if that wasn't enough, Rife doubled down on TikTok, explaining that this wasn't just some quirky investment, but something deeply personal for him. He admitted that he had been obsessed with the paranormal for years, and even reminded fans that the Conjuring films were his all-time favorite horror movies. The passion in his voice made it clear this wasn't a publicity stunt. For Rife, this was a dream come true. Of course, people immediately wanted to know the details. How much did he pay? What would happen to all those haunted artifacts? Rife didn't reveal the purchase price, but he made one thing clear. They weren't the owners of the artifacts in the traditional sense. Instead, he and Elton Castee were now their official guardians for at least the next 5 years. That meant they had custody over all 750 haunted items inside the museum, including the notorious Annabelle doll. Elton, brimming with excitement, left a comment under Rife's post, saying that he still couldn't believe they were sitting on the Warrens' porch, surrounded by so much history. He promised fans that they were going to turn the property into the best paranormal investigation location in the world. But while some fans cheered at the idea of having a chance to see the haunted museum up close, not everyone was thrilled with this plan. Almost immediately, experts in the paranormal community began voicing their concerns. Philip Siracusa, a seasoned investigator who once owned a haunted home himself, spoke to TMZ about the dangers of Rife's decision. He warned that dark energy was not something to take lightly, and that it had a way of attaching itself to people, often with devastating consequences. Siracusa went so far as to say he hoped Matt and Elton would get through this alive, a chilling statement that made fans wonder just how serious this could get. And then came his harshest warning. He strongly criticized the idea of opening the house to the public, calling it a recipe for disaster. According to him, letting crowds of people walk through the space could expose them to forces they didn't understand, forces that could follow them home and wreak havoc on their lives. It was a warning not easily ignored. Chris McCannell, the grandson of Ed and Lorraine Warren, and a paranormal researcher in his own right, echoed these concerns. He pointed out that the Warrens had never meant for the museum to be a tourist attraction, but rather a carefully controlled space, meant for education and spiritual study. In his words, dealing with the unknown demanded not just curiosity, but deep responsibility, context, and caution. He even urged Rife to reach out to him and other experts before diving headfirst into this new venture, making it clear that in his view, enthusiasm alone wasn't enough to handle what was inside that house. And then there was Tony Spera, Ed and Lorraine's son-in-law, who clarified to Today.com that while Matt and Elton were now the guardians of the artifacts, the true ownership still rested with him and his wife, Judy. They weren't selling off the legacy, the items were simply being leased to new caretakers. All of these warnings, of course, only made the story more gripping. Here was a young comedian stepping into a world filled with shadows, mysteries, and dangers that even seasoned investigators tread carefully around. And adding to the tension was the eerie timing of the whole thing. The announcement came not long after the sudden death of Dan Rivera, a paranormal investigator who had recently been touring with the Annabelle doll. Some within the community couldn't help but connect the dots, wondering if this was just coincidence or if there was something more sinister at play. Could Rife and Castee really handle the heavy burden of keeping these haunted items safe? Or were they unknowingly opening the door to something far darker than they ever imagined? Inside the Warren Museum. The Warren Occult Museum has often been described as one of the most unsettling places in America, and for good reason. People say it isn't just a museum. It's more like a living archive of the supernatural, a place where every object has a story that makes you question what is real and what isn't. Established back in 1952, right alongside the founding of the New England Society for Psychic Research, it was never meant to be just another display of old trinkets. So who exactly were Ed and Lorraine Warren? Well, Ed Warren wasn't just any ordinary man. Born in 1926, he lived through the struggles of World War II as a Navy veteran, and after that, he even worked as a police officer. But unlike most people, he went on to become something much stranger, a self-taught demonologist, someone who studied evil spirits and how they might affect the world of the living. Lorraine, on the other hand, born in 1927, always said that she had the gift of clairvoyance. According to her, she could see things most people couldn't, and she believed those abilities were with her since childhood. Together, this husband and wife duo formed one of the most famous paranormal investigation teams in history, claiming to have worked on more than 10,000 cases. Of course, Their work wasn't without controversy. Their names became widely known after high-profile cases such as the Amityville haunting, which was later adapted into books and blockbuster horror films. But while many believers treated the Warrens like heroes who battled forces of darkness, critics often accused them of exaggeration and even fabrication. Perhaps nothing in their collection has stirred more conversation than the infamous Annabelle doll. Now, when people hear Annabelle, they usually think of the chilling porcelain doll from the horror movies. But the real Annabelle is not porcelain at all. She's just a plain Raggedy Ann doll. Her story began in 1968, when a young nurse received her as a gift. At first, she must have thought it was nothing more than a sweet, harmless toy. But things quickly took a disturbing turn. The nurse and her roommate started noticing odd happenings, the doll moving into different positions on its own, handwritten notes appearing on parchment paper, and at one point, what looked like blood oozing from her. Who wouldn't be terrified if a doll in their home seemed to come alive? After consulting a medium, the women were told that the spirit of a young girl named Annabelle Higgins was inside the doll. But when the Warrens examined it, they came to a much darker conclusion. They insisted the doll wasn't simply possessed. It was being controlled by a demonic force, one that was searching for a human soul to latch onto. The Warrens even claimed that on the drive back home, their car experienced brake failures until they doused the doll with holy water. From that day forward, Annabelle was locked away in a special glass case with a stark warning: positively do not open. That very sign alone has become a symbol of the thin line between curiosity and danger. And doesn't that make you wonder why, even with all the warnings, people still long to see her in person? But Annabelle isn't the only strange object hidden within the walls of the Warren Occult Museum. The collection is said to hold around 750 haunted artifacts, pulled from nearly 3,000 cases. Each one comes with a story just as unsettling as the next. There's the so-called shadow doll, created with bird feathers and even a human tooth, allegedly designed for rituals to harm others. Then there's a toy dinosaur tied to the chilling "Devil Made Me Do It" case, where it supposedly levitated during an exorcism. Another bizarre item is a satanic idol discovered in the woods of Sandy Hook in 1991, raising questions about what kinds of rituals might have taken place there. Even seemingly ordinary objects, like a self-playing piano or a necklace ominously named the Pearls of Death, add to the eerie atmosphere with stories that they strangled or cursed their wearers. Isn't it unsettling to think that such harmless-looking things could carry such terrifying energy? For years, people could visit the museum and come face-to-face with these artifacts, though it was never like a traditional tourist attraction. After Lorraine Warren's passing in 2019, however, the museum closed its doors due to zoning issues. It almost felt like the spirits themselves wanted their secrets kept hidden. For a long time, only a handful of trusted individuals could step inside, and the rest of the world could only wonder what it might be like to stand just a few feet away from objects tied to some of the most notorious paranormal cases ever documented. That's why the recent acquisition of the collection by Matt Rife and Elton Castee has stirred so much excitement. For paranormal enthusiasts, it feels like a new chapter is about to begin, one that could either open the door to more discoveries or remind everyone that some things are better left alone. And yet, curiosity has a way of pushing people past those warnings, doesn't it? Stay with me till the very end, because once you hear the details of these discoveries, you'll understand why some people are saying this collection should have stayed locked away forever. What they found inside. Terrifying discoveries. When Matt Rife and Elton Castee stepped into the infamous Warren residence, it was said that they weren't just walking into an old house filled with antiques, they were entering a place that carried stories whispered in fear for decades. People had warned them that this wasn't like stepping onto a movie set, even though some of the objects inside were stranger and more terrifying than anything Hollywood could ever dream up. And indeed, as they explored, they soon realized why so many caretakers and visitors before them had spoken of uneasy nights, chilling encounters, and moments that defied all explanation. But isn't it curious, one might ask, how objects inanimate and lifeless could hold on to such sinister energies, almost as if they carried memories that refused to fade? Almost immediately, the pair found themselves experiencing the same strange disturbances others had written about long before them. The house seemed alive with sounds that couldn't be traced to any clear source. People had reported hearing unexplained noises echoing through the rooms, footsteps when no one was around, and doors creaking as though they were being pushed by unseen hands. One of the most unsettling stories was about the old organ tucked away in the house. According to visitors, the instrument had a terrifying habit of playing by itself, but the moment anyone dared to enter the room to see for themselves, the music would stop dead. It was almost as if the house enjoyed playing games with those who entered. Games where the rules were unclear, but the sense of dread was always present. And then there was what caretakers had long called the witching hour, a time after 9 p.m. when the atmosphere seemed to change entirely. Some said the walls began to groan and shift as if the structure itself was trying to speak. Others mentioned a strange low humming that filled the air, steady and mechanical, giving the disturbing impression that the very house was alive, breathing quietly in the darkness. It raised the unnerving question, was this just old wood settling at night? Or was something deeper at play, something that couldn't be explained away so easily? But perhaps the most disturbing part of the collection was the objects themselves, and none carried a reputation as chilling as the shadow doll. Perched as the first haunted item encountered when entering the Warren Occult Museum, it was a grotesque sight to behold. Decorated with bird feathers and containing an actual human tooth, it was an object that instantly disturbed anyone who saw it. Unlike Annabelle, who was said to lash out through physical harm, the shadow doll had a reputation for something far worse. According to Tony Spera, the Warrens' own son-in-law, this doll wasn't just created to frighten, it was made specifically for harm during curse rituals. Rumors swirled that the doll had the power to slip into a person's dreams and kill them while they slept. How terrifying is that thought, that sleep, the one time of day where a person should feel safe, could become the very stage for one's death. The collection didn't stop there. Hidden deeper inside the museum were other relics with histories that could send shivers down the bravest spine. Rife and Castee reportedly came across a towering satanic idol nearly as tall as a man, which had been discovered in the woods of Sandy Hook, Connecticut in the early 90s. Witnesses claimed that the moment it was brought into the museum, Lorraine Warren herself fell gravely ill, though no doctor could explain why. Alongside the idol were children's tombstones that had reportedly been used in satanic altars, conjuring mirrors meant to call spirits from the other side, and even what many swore was a vampire's coffin. One had to wonder, could these things really hold such power? Or was it the sheer weight of belief and fear surrounding them that gave them life? And then, of course, there was Annabelle, the doll whose name alone could silence a room. More than just a prop of ghost stories, Annabelle was connected to accidents and tragedies that made skeptics stop and think twice. According to one caretaker, the first time he ever moved Annabelle, he found himself caught in a 3-car accident at a red light. Cars came from every direction, colliding into one another until his own was pushed back nearly 30 feet. He said it was no coincidence. The second time he tried to handle her, his truck's engine gave out for no reason, leaving him stranded. Modern technologies seemed to crumble in her presence too. Cameras recorded nothing but static. Smart devices glitched and misbehaved, and some visitors even reported that their own electronics back home went haywire after their visit. Was it bad luck, or was Annabelle still finding ways to remind everyone of her dark reputation? By the end of their time inside the Warren residence, it was clear to Matt Rife and Elton Castee that this wasn't simply a house full of objects. It was a place where history, tragedy, and fear seemed to breathe together. Every corner whispered stories of the past. Every artifact seemed to hum with energy. And every sound echoed like a warning to leave while one still could. And perhaps the biggest question of all remained: were these horrors truly bound within the objects, or was it the human mind, so ready to believe in the supernatural, that gave them their strength? One could argue either way, but as so many before had already discovered, the Warren residence was not a place easily forgotten. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.